King says Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake beef is a byproduct of the Willie Lynch syndrome. Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake represent the Willie Lynch syndrome competition for dominance. In both situations, there's a sense of competition for dominance. In the case of the beef, it's about who is the superior rapper, who has more influence, and who is more respected within the hip-hop community. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome aimed to create competition and division among slaves by instilling a sense of superiority and inferiority among them. Manipulation of differences. The beef between Kendrick Lamar and Drake often involved personal and lyrical attacks that highlighted their differences in style, content, and audience appeal. This mirrors the Willie Lynch strategy of exploiting differences among slaves, whether based on skin color, skill set, or other factors, to prevent unity and resistance. Control through division. Both situations involve the use of division as a means of control. In the beef, the division between fans and within the hip-hop community serves to maintain interest, generate publicity, and ultimately benefit the industry. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome aimed to control slaves by fostering division and mistrust among them, making it difficult for them to unite against their oppressors. Impact on community. The beef between two prominent black artists can have wider implications for the black community, as it can perpetuate stereotypes, reinforce negative perceptions, and distract from more significant issues. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome aimed to perpetuate divisions within the slave community, ultimately weakening their ability to resist oppression and work together towards liberation. Certainly. Let's delve deeper into some explosive parallels between the Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake beef and the Willie Lynch syndrome. Weaponizing differences. In both scenarios, differences are weaponized to sow discord and maintain control. In the beef, personal and artistic distinctions are amplified to stoke rivalry and fan allegiance. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome advocated exploiting physical, cultural, and intellectual disparities among slaves to foster internal strife and prevent unified resistance. Economic interests. Both situations serve the interests of those in power. The Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake beef generates immense financial gain for record labels, media outlets, and other stakeholders in the music industry. Likewise, the Willie Lynch syndrome was devised to maximize economic productivity and ensure the profitability of the slave trade by undermining solidarity among enslaved individuals. Psychological manipulation. Psychological manipulation is central to both contexts. In the beef, artists engage in verbal sparring and strategic image management to assert dominance and manipulate public perception. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome aimed to psychologically condition slaves through fear, intimidation, and the internalization of inferiority, thereby perpetuating a cycle of subservience and control. Distraction from systemic issues. Both situations serve as distractions from systemic issues affecting marginalized communities. The beef captivates public attention, overshadowing broader discussions about social justice, inequality, and systemic racism in the music industry. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome diverted focus from the inherent injustice and brutality of slavery by fostering internal conflict among slaves and deflecting blame onto their purported shortcomings. Legacy of division. Perhaps most explosively, both contexts leave a legacy of division and mistrust within the affected communities. The Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake beef perpetuates rivalries and animosities among fans, often along racial and cultural lines, which can exacerbate tensions within the broader hip-hop community. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome engendered deep-seated divisions and prejudices among enslaved Africans, leaving a lasting legacy of intergenerational trauma and societal fragmentation. These parallels underscore the insidious ways in which power dynamics, manipulation, and division manifest across different contexts, from the music industry to the history of slavery. While distinct in their specifics, both the Kendrick Lamar vs. Drake beef and the Willie Lynch syndrome reflect broader patterns of exploitation and control within marginalized communities. What about light skin versus dark skin? The dynamic of light skin versus dark skin is a deeply rooted issue within many communities of color, particularly in the context of colorism. Perpetuation of colorism. Both the Biff and the Willie Lynch syndrome can perpetuate colorism by reinforcing stereotypes and preferences based on skin tone. In the music industry, artists with lighter skin tones may be perceived as more marketable or mainstream, while those with darker skin tones may face biases or barriers to success. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome exploited color differences among enslaved Africans to justify differential treatment and perpetuate divisions within the community. Manipulation of insecurities. Colorism in both contexts can manipulate insecurities and internalized biases. In the Biff, artists may subtly or overtly exploit colorist sentiments to gain advantage or undermine opponents. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome preyed on the insecurities of enslaved individuals by assigning value based on skin tone, thereby perpetuating a hierarchy of privilege and reinforcing internalized oppression. Impact on identity. Both situations can have profound effects on individual and collective identity. In the music industry, colorism may influence how artists present themselves, the themes they explore in their music, and the reception they receive from fans and industry gatekeepers. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome distorted perceptions of self-worth and identity among enslaved Africans, shaping their understanding of beauty, intelligence, and social status based on arbitrary criteria imposed by their oppressors. Division within communities. Colorism contributes to division and discrimination within communities of color. In the Biff, colorist remarks or attitudes can exacerbate tensions and perpetuate harmful stereotypes within the hip-hop community and beyond. Similarly, the Willie Lynch syndrome fostered division and mistrust among enslaved Africans by exploiting color differences and instilling a sense of superiority or inferiority based on arbitrary physical traits. While distinct phenomena, the dynamics of light skin versus dark skin and the issues of competition, manipulation, and division present in the Kendrick Lamar versus Drake beef and the Willie Lynch syndrome intersect in complex ways, reflecting broader patterns of inequality and oppression within society. For more content from King Noble, join www.kingnoblunsonsad.com.